good over there, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the 4 Pillar Podcast. We stand for faith, family, fitness, and finance. And this is Ian Lashley and Matt Gadamer. We also have Dr. Stinemetz here today with us, the chiropractor. And so I have a little story here. I thought about this last night. So let's say once upon a time, right? Let's say you wake up one morning and it's a beautiful May day in Ohio. And so you're thinking, oh, okay, nice and warm, 75 and sunny. You stroll down the stairs, go into the kitchen. You're waiting for little Johnny and Lindell to wake up from for a good night's sleep. You're making some pancakes with the little bacon smiley face and the blueberries with the eyeballs. And the kids, you hear thud, 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 running down the stairs. Hey, what's going on? You go pick up little Johnny, and you're like, oh, my back. Who do you call, Matt?
Dr. Nathan Steinmetz.
Dr. Nathan Steinmetz. I don't know if I can edit that out if you don't like that.
No, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. That happens more than you could possibly imagine.
I thought about that like all night last night, that story, but okay.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it.
So we have Dr. Stinemetz here today. He's a chiropractor. He's been a chiropractor for a long time. He's a super, super smart guy, and he has so many accreditations with you have your CSC, right, and a bunch of other stuff. I can't remember all
mine's
you have.
a CCSP.
Okay.
Certified Chiropractic Sports Physician.
Gotcha.
It is actually a program ran through the Olympic Committee.
Awesome. Yes. So really quick, go ahead. I want you to tell us all like what certifications you have, how long you've been practicing. I mean, I've been going to you for like a really long time. You do an amazing job. My favorite chiropractor I've ever been to. I haven't been to a whole bunch, but
one out of one's not bad.
One's yeah. But yeah, go ahead and tell us about yourself, how long you've been practicing, and all that stuff and certifications.
Like Ian said, Dr. Nathan Steinmetz. I grew up in Loudonville my whole life, and then went to Ashland University for my undergrad, and then Iowa basically is the foundation. That's where chiropractic was founded, is in Davenport, Iowa. So I wanted to go where basically the first adjustment happened, which I thought was kind of neat. I'm kind of weird like that.
That's literally where the first
literally the first on the Mississippi River, very first chiropractic adjustment.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I wanted to go there. And I've been practicing for 23 years this year. So I started in 2000. My father's a chiropractor. So
I was ready to ask you that. Then you've been around this your whole life, basically.
I was adjusted when I was 18 hours old.
18 hours old?
18 hours old.
Okay.
If you think about it, the most traumatic incident of your life is going through the birth canal.
Right. I remember you actually telling me, because we took Eden to see you.
Yeah.
That was my daughter. And I had Nathan look at her. But yeah, that's I guess that's a whole nother topic.
It's a whole nother topic. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been around chiropractic my whole life, followed my dad's footsteps, and been in Loudonville, Danville, and now Mount Vernon in the last 23 years.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
I've went to chiropractic school, and then after chiropractic school, probably about 8 or 9 years ago, an associate of mine and I decided to start taking classes for the sports injury related aspect of chiropractic, which opened my eyes to a whole nother level. Chiropractic's one thing, and then you go into specialty topics.
Mm-hmm.
And the sports thing was very, very interesting to me. And I did a 2-year accreditation type course through, it's called the CCSP, and David Morneau, he was actually the lead physician for the Olympics for a period of time. He was a chiropractor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he would then organize the whole Olympics with all the physicians, all the PTs, all the surgeons, everything. But he was like the point person, and very, very smart guy. I wish I knew an eighth of his information, but very smart guy. But he found that when he first got to the Olympics, everything was disjointed. Right? Like there were surgeons here, there was doctors here, there was chiropractors here, but they never like worked together. And that's actually where he kind of fixed everything. So that whole team, and as you saw, like with the kid from Buffalo Bills, where that team went into action to save him on the field, like it was like boom, like that. That's where, he was kind of credited with doing that in the Olympics of not having you're having surgery, but then the PT wasn't included or whatever. It's really a team effort, and everybody kind of knows their role in that team. And so it was a very, very interesting course. I learned so much information. Basically, I knew nothing before the course. It
Yeah.
seemed like. So I really enjoyed it. Kind of practiced like that since. I practiced in Danville, Loudonville, Mount Vernon. Not a whole lot of professional athletes in that area, but I use those techniques, ideas, and stuff for everybody.
Right.
Because if you think about it, walking is an athletic event, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're balancing in your walking gait, you're balancing 80% on one leg. You're not on both feet at the same time
Right.
when you're walking. So, it just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I take a lot of that in and make it more simplified for just walking or getting up off the chair or whatever. But all of it is important.
Yeah. And so today we're really going to talk about posture was our thing we're going to talk about. And I liked what we were talking about, before we started here. You said you could tell somebody's health by their posture, right?
Correct.
And I like that. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah. So in my analysis in my clinic, there are non-verbal communication that the body is telling me based on position and posture and things like that on how healthy they are or what's going on. So a lot of times a patient will come in, they'll tell me their history of what they think caused their pain and stuff like that. And then I have them stand and move and do some functional things. And then I see what the body is actually telling me. And so if you just go to the mall or the airport or something like that, and you just watch people walk by, you can kind of tell generically who's healthy, who's not, right? How the speed of which they're walking and how they're positioned. If you see some older people, they're like more bent forward, right? They're more flexed and kind of leaning forward.
I noticed a big problem with like older people, especially even my grandparents, that upper back hunch kind of thing going on.
Correct. Actually, we'll talk about that a little bit, but that is actually going to be a huge pandemic because of cell phones in the next 20, 30 years. We're all hunched over now. So we're training the body to be hunched, which is even going to make things worse later on in life. But you look at posture and it gives you subtle clues, a high shoulder, forward flexion, head forward tilt. Those are all indications of certain health. And as you become more unhealthy, your posture is worse. And you see that with older people sometimes, not all older people.
Right.
But you see definitely more unhealthy people have worse posture. So our body is related. We think everything's independent, like our heart is independent of something else, but it's actually all related. The body as a whole, and the posture plays a huge role in some non-verbal communication as to how you feel and what's going on.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I've actually never even thought about health like that because if you think about it, right? I mean, Matt, you probably see this as well too. Like, you never really see like a healthy person like hunched over in a bad postural position. And that's super interesting. Have you ever thought about that? I've never even thought about it.
Really, no.
Yeah, it's just a very different way of looking at things, but that's how I analyze. A lot of people are like, do you take x-rays? Do you do that? X-rays are great, and it's a very good diagnostic tool, but it's one moment in time. But when we do movement and when we look at posture, that is actually how you are positioned all day long. A lot of people will come in and they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, I bent over to pick up a piece of paper and my back went out. It wasn't the paper that caused your back to go out or the kids to run down the steps and getting their breakfast and you pick them up. It wasn't that necessarily incident that caused it. It was leading up to it. Maybe you had a left lateral tilt or you're rotated a little bit. Things have been brewing in the background without any pain. And then you went the final movement that caused the pain. It wasn't that final movement. It was a whole bunch of things leading up to that.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to ask, how did it get that way? Like you said something like left lateral tilt. Like, how did that develop?
It can be independent for everybody. A lot of it is like, just think of how many times you fell off your bike, when you were learning how to ride a bike, or those trees you climbed that you fell out of.
That you never thought twice about and later in life.
You were sore for a day or so,
right?
But you
didn't think long-term
exactly.
health problems.
Yeah, it was like how and it's very basic, but when they talked to us in chiropractic school, they said, think of these traumas as layers of an onion. Okay. And one trauma is like one little layer, big deal. It's tiny, doesn't cause any problem. But then you have another one, another little trauma, and then another little trauma. And before you know it, 20, 30 traumas are now about, big ass onion.
Yeah. you're
We
fine.
can cut that but a big
You're
onion.
fine.
And so then that's your problem. So a lot of times it is more of the position we're in, like on the phone. That's a headward forward posture. The shoulders are rotated forward and stuff, and that will lead to problems. Those positions, people will sit in their chairs and they'll sit on one leg, and
I was just thinking about how my daughter does that.
yeah, and it tilts the pelvis the whole time.
Like if this was tucked
Yeah,
under
exactly.
here, yeah.
Exactly. So it tilts the pelvis the whole time. You start doing that, you start working an 8-hour day with your leg underneath you. The pelvis is tilted, the shoulders tilt, the brain will sell out the body to keep the eyes parallel to the ground, because we have to have balance, right? Or we fall over.
Right.
If the head is tilted, our main balance centers in our inner ears, you hear the inner ear thing. That's so the body is sold out to keep the eyes parallel. So if we are unparalleling the pelvis, the shoulders, things like that, the head will try to stay perfectly level. And then we start to create movement problems and postural issues based on that. So sometimes it's just little things that we're doing, how we sit, how we sleep, how we move, how we work, those repetitive motions. Like if you're doing a factory job and you're rotating to the right 8 to 10 hours, and you don't rotate to the left, you've unbalanced the body. So the body has to be in homeostasis or balance in order to be healthy. And you're either moving towards or away from homeostasis. There is no like you're healthy one day and you're sick the next.
Right.
There's this whole line of healthy, completely healthy, and disease, and then you're either moving towards it or away from it the whole time.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that's how a lot of things happen. I mean, we definitely see, you're in a car accident,
All right.
you fall, you roll your ankle, things like that. But it's the little things that most people come in to see me for. They build up that way. I'm like, well, you sleep on your stomach, don't you? Well, you probably don't sleep on your stomach face down or you'll suffocate. So you have to
Right.
turn your head one direction.
Right.
And you're doing that for 8 hours. And that rotation, you stretch out certain muscles, you tighten other ones for 8 hours. And that's what you're training the posture to do. So a lot of people that show up, it's more of, you don't think of it, but it's more of things that you may be doing on a habit or compensations from a trauma, like falling off the bike that you just lived with for many, many years. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my next thing I was gonna ask you. So we're talking about posture, and I mean, you just kind of went into a bunch of things, the habits and stuff you can do on a daily basis. So what would you recommend to somebody to help fix their posture, keep a good postural position? I mean, if you could break it down, there's a lot that goes into it, obviously, but like, what are some simple things or cues or whatever you could do to adjust your posture? And then we can even talk about, exercises you could do as well.
Absolutely. Main thing is to try and stay balanced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're not like if you're standing, you're not shifting your weight to one leg more than the other. A lot of people do it. I actually have a tendency to do it myself. But if you pay attention,
I'm adjusting
yeah.
myself in the chair
Now
right
you're trying to sit straight. But
Yeah.
just stay balanced. Try not to be rotated in your chair. Try not to sit on your foot.
Or even probably sitting like this.
Yeah, this
right?
is not the best. No,
yeah.
I mean, look at our posture. We're more in a C position.
Matt's adjusting his
this
posture
is
as
not
well.
the best. This is not the
feels
best
really
couch
weird to me
for
to
this.
sit like this.
Yeah, but
You don't want to know where that couch came from.
by
I'm just
the
kidding.
road.
Right.
But those are the main things that you can do, is just try and stay balanced, and then you need to move into the mobility aspect, right? We only move in one posture. We do a lot of flexion, but we don't do a lot of extension. Right? You don't look up all the time. You look down all the time, but you don't look up all the time. You don't extend, but you flex. You bend over and pick up that piece of paper, but you don't do back bends.
Right.
I mean, I'm not expecting everybody to do back bends, but we don't go in the opposite direction. So keeping things balanced that way is a good start. Working on mobility, things like that.
That made me even think about, like, I went to do like a decline bench in Danville yesterday. Just like the bench was kind of like really stiff and then kind of arced backwards. And I laid down. I was like, oh man, like that backwards, that backwards flexion.
And it's just like, when was the last time you did that?
Right.
Oh,
probably months. I mean,
yeah. And so you do everything else going the other way daily or multiple times a day, and then you don't. It's been 2 months since you went backwards.
Right.
So that builds up over time too. So that would be the simplest thing to start with, and then definitely exercising,
Mhm.
right? Because when you exercise, we concentrate on certain movements and patterns, and we try to work many different muscles, right? Not just, I mean, some people want to just bench and then walk out of the gym, but you want to do your rows and your pull downs and work the back, because we neglect the back a lot. We like to work the front and sometimes the legs, but we don't work the back as much as usually we work the front.
For aesthetic reasons.
Yeah, for
But
aesthetic reasons.
I always tell people, for whatever you do, quote unquote, in the front, you got to do the same.
Correct.
In the back.
Absolutely.
Working on your biceps, you got to get your triceps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes if they're really bound this way, I say you need to work the back twice as much as you work the front.
Well, because you worked up to that.
Correct.
Because
you're unbalanced now.
Yeah. All they cared about was their bench.
Exactly.
And now they can't even bench anymore because their shoulders are so. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that when the body is more functional, wow, my gains go up. I mean, everything, all my personal bests start to improve because I'm actually more functional. And that's more of what I try to deal with, is more of the functionality of things.
Right. So, do you have a specific exercise that you'd recommend, like your favorite postural correction exercise, or something very specific that you'd recommend, or your favorite that you like to recommend for people?
Honestly, if we're talking about anything, and I think one of the biggest pandemics is going to be our neck in the next 10 to 20 years. So I call it the chicken move. and basically what you're going to do is you're going to try and sit up straight, and you're going to try and tuck that chin back. Basically get your ears over top your shoulders. And if you're going to do anything, that would be the biggest thing to do, because you're then activating some of the erector spinae muscles in the neck, into the mid back area, some of the trap. But we're doing this and this a lot,
right?
And now we're training it to go back. So if anything, I don't have a favorite, because I try to dictate for the individual. Right. It's whatever the individual needs is my favorite exercise for that individual. So I do have a person that does rehab, and she is trained on my vision of how I see health and posture and movement and function. And so we work on those kind of specific things, but we try to isolate it for the individual. So I don't have a generic, like people are like, hey, do you have a list of exercises? No, I don't, because you might need something way different than you'd need. Right. And so we try to dictate it on that.
That's actually one thing I've always liked about you. It reminds me of no BS.
Right.
Like, yeah. Yeah. As a chiropractor, there's no BS.
I try not to do anything in my clinic that is unneeded.
Right.
Okay. I am a chiropractor first. I am going to adjust you. That's just, that's where I've been my whole life. And as a chiropractor, that's where I'm going to be. And I do offer different things in my clinic, but I don't do them just to do them. I'm not going to put you in a cookie cutter treatment plan. And I am not going to do just these modalities because it makes me more money.
Right.
I'm going to do things specific that you individually need to help you get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And, some people just want to be out of pain. Some people want to be like, I want to be able to, as a grandparent, be able to go out there and play basketball with my kid or my grandkids, And so some people have way different goals. Some people just want to get up off the pot, and other people want to go play with their grandkids.
Right.
So we try to dictate it on that.
I want to touch on this a little bit too. We were talking about this the other day too, kind of the myth of like chiropractors or whatever. Some people think, it's kind of like a hoax, voodoo or whatever you want to call it. So I guess what do you have to like say about that? If somebody's like, no, I've heard this. Like, I've never been to a chiropractor, and I've heard, once I start going to a chiropractor, I always have to go to a chiropractor or something because of whatever. Once I get, they do your voodoo magic on me, then I have to keep using the voodoo magic for it to work, or to stay
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. They're like, I'm just not going because I'm afraid I'm going. I always have to go.
Right.
It's kind of like eating a salad. I'm just not going to eat a salad because I might have to eat a salad forever. But I get that. So I tell people sometimes that is true. And the only reason I say that is because you're like, you go to a chiropractor first time, never been to one. And for a perfect example, I'll have somebody that comes in, they're in lower back pain. We adjust their lower back, And then they come to me a couple weeks later and they're like, Doc, I can actually turn my head now and actually see oncoming traffic, right? I don't have to turn my whole
Right.
body. I can actually turn my head, but you didn't adjust my neck. What is that? So basically, sometimes you don't know how bad you felt until you started feeling better, right?
Right.
Because some of these things, it's maybe stiffness or tightness or lack of range of motion, which you didn't realize you had. And what people realize then is they get adjusted, they start feeling better or moving better. And then they notice then when they're not moving as well. So it's not that you have to keep going back. It's that you're like, wow, I recognize that I can be better.
Right.
So I keep going. There is that aspect. The other aspect is that some people will just adjust and they neglect the muscle component, the movement component. And that's where we try to take into that consideration, show you the exercises, show you postural changes so that you don't have to see me as often. Because if you can keep it balanced, if I can give you some exercises and you can go home and do that, you don't have to see me as often. So you don't have to see me as often. So it's kind of a double-edged sword when you say that. Some people like it because they feel better than they thought they could feel. And then other times, if you're not taking into consideration the muscles and the posture and stuff like that, yeah, it keeps going out.
Well, and it makes sense, just like you said, if you came out of the birth canal and you go your whole entire life, and one day you're 30 years old and I'm going to go to a chiropractor. Well, what in the crap have you done? I mean,
in 30 years,
there's 30 years of basically the onion. There's 30 years of onion. That's
exactly.
Jacked yourself up.
Yep. So that's kind of the aspect too, because I do see a lot of people that are later in life, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they might have had when you were 5, right? And you're trying to ride a bike and you fell off and cracked your face,
Well, I wonder how many times we both played football, Ian wrestled. We both do jits. Like nothing that was an injury that we even thought about.
Right.
But after time, those hits or something
Correct.
like that could have built up those little, like the things you were mentioning before.
Well, and
something being a little bit out of alignment.
Absolutely. And there's the alignment. I guess the big news now is, the post-concussion stuff, right? And they're now coming out with these football players and boxers and stuff like that all these little hits created a big problem that they didn't know existed, until just more recently with more of the newer research and stuff. So it's kind of a little bit like that, different, but kind of the same idea. If you want to think about it. You don't realize that all those little hits, those stingers, those things you got in football were actually a problem.
Right. You never missed time from them. You never went to the hospital. They were just
shake it off.
You never thought about it.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, wow. Now we're seeing some of these with more significant things with brain trauma and stuff like that, but our body is the same, right? No matter if it's the brain or the muscle or a ligament or a bone, they all take the abuse a little bit differently and then create compensation from that injury, whether it's scar tissue in the muscle or the ligament, whether it's repairing the bone, with a little bit more calcium. You see people where they say you pretty much never fracture the same area because the bone is made stronger, right? When it repairs. So you'll break above or below it, but usually never right on the same one because and the old martial artists, I mean, that's what they used to do, right? They used to punch trees and sand and stuff. They used to create micro fractures in their bones to make their bones stronger. And you would x-ray them and their bones would be like bright white because there was more calcium. They were strong.
Right.
And then that's why they would, be able to punch you or kick you or whatever and break other people.
Right.
Yeah, it's still bone, but their bone, it was made stronger. It's called Wolf's Law, by the way. When you keep traumatizing that bone and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
So it legitimately works.
Oh, it legitimately works. Yeah, start kicking trees.
He's going to be doing that tomorrow.
I know. One more thing for him to go after. But no, it legitimately works. If you watch those old monks and stuff and where they're pounding that sand and stuff like that, it does work. But it's that repetitive, constant abuse, increased pressure.
Well, when I was younger, my dad was still doing some MMA and stuff. He used to hit his shins with glass bottles.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
when
exactly
he just goes up and down and taps it and taps.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Hits, to
And
It-
that will cause these micro.
it will create enough extra stress to the area, and the body will respond to stress in for the bone and by depositing more calcium, they're making the bone stronger to deal with that stress.
And that's called Wolf's
Wuss law for the
Wuss law,
bones.
okay.
Yeah, but the whole body is kind of the whole system is built on that. You stress the system, it creates the body's amazing, right? I mean,
Right.
it's a perfect design if you really give it a chance. But when you stress it, it tries to figure out how to deal with that stress if it's a repetitive stress. And so that Wuss law is one of
Well, I
those
mean,
aspects.
that's weightlifting, right? You
Yes.
tear the muscle down
Right.
and it comes back stronger. Yeah.
That's exactly. And if you look at it on multi different levels like that, whether it's muscle, bone, ligament, I mean, the ligament gets stronger too because it has to support now the force that the bone does or that the muscle does.
I was ready to ask you if tendons and ligaments, right, do the same
They
thing.
do, but they heal at a very different rate because there's not as much blood supply to it. The blood is what brings all the healing components and all the repairing components, and tendons and ligaments don't have that direct blood supply, so they have to absorb it from the surrounding tissue and stuff like that. So that response, like if you build muscle too fast, you will start tearing ligaments and tendons because they haven't caught up to that muscle growth yet. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. I got you.
So there is different levels on that healing and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I always thought about that, but I never really knew there was it was a legit law
Right.
or something researched on. So I was going to ask you here too, what, so we're talking about posture, describe per se. I was trying to think about this. So, if I'm walking around or whatever, because what you're saying too, just one way to have good posture is just to constantly kind of practice or have awareness.
Train yourself.
Yeah, train yourself. What's going on? So, do you have any cues or kind of things that you can you tell somebody to tell yourself, like when you're walking around, like I heard one on YouTube was like pretend you have you're holding a glass of water in the center of your chest, right? So it helps you push the chest out, pull the shoulders back. Like, do you have anything like that? Like certain things that you tell people?
I kind of I kind of show people against the wall. If you go up against the wall, put your heels against the wall, and the lower back, you cannot get it pushed. And that's not like you're going to hold it there, but you cannot push your lower back flat against the wall. You don't have that mobility in there, and that is creating a problem.
So you should be able to push your lower back.
You should be able to, not that you're going to hold it there forever,
right.
but you should have the flexibility, the core strength, and the pelvic tilt ability to be able to push your lumbar spine flat against and then the other people are like, oh, my butt's just too big, right? Oh, I just have a big butt.
That's Matt's
but
problem.
but the other aspect is that they can't get their head back there either, because you should be able to put your head flat against there, your shoulders flat against there, your arms up with your shoulders not being hunched.
Whew. I already know I've already failed this.
And your lower back, you should be able to be that functional to do that. So I usually be like, you don't have a problem, let's do this. Can you do this? And I'll no, I can't. Why is that so hard? And I was like, we can get you there. Right. I mean, relatively, most people I can get them there, unless you have, fractures in the spine or fusions or something way out of character. But most people should be able to gain that flexibility to get there. So I use that as a cool little tool because everybody has a wall. And if you do planks, that's a perfect example. If you're doing planks and your lumbar spine is way anterior and you're really arched in the shoulder, you're not doing a good plank, right? And you're going to train injuries, right? You'll exercise and you have terrible posture. So now you're like, why did I tear my shoulder? Things like that. So I use that as the posture thing first. And I said, this is how I want you to do your plank because you're going to engage the core a little bit better. And then you're going to train that, those muscles to be strong in those positions. You're going to have less injuries when you are doing something a little bit more physical.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder how many times I use the word posture on a daily basis, whether we're talking about people lifting here or on the mats over there, and how important it is. I mean, with lifting for your health, right? But how much stronger you are when your posture is where it should be. And definitely when you're on the mats, like having good posture is the difference between.
I mean, out there, just a a twist, just a slight little twist, is a total different mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Strength, or from a lock to not a lock, things like that. Just one little movement. Or you can't get that. Why can't I get that? Like, this is exactly what they showed me.
And then it's off.
And then you're just
yeah.
like, oh no, just tweak it. And you're like, that was totally different.
Yeah, I was literally working on ankle locks last week, and same thing. It's like just moving the hips. You're rotating the hips this way,
exactly,
like an inch, and
it
makes it 10 times tighter.
It's just small little movements that make all the difference in the world. And you watch people, if they're doing a row in the gym and their head's all the way forward and they're doing rows, they're going to blow out a disc in their neck. That's putting so much tension there. They need to keep chest high, right? Shoulders back, and do that row and really move those shoulder blades to get a really good activation of those muscles, or you're going to have an injury.
Yeah. Is there anything you like to share about how you adjust people, or like the common adjustments you use, or anything like that?
Yeah, I can. I am a hands-on guy.
Yeah.
I have some tools, things like that, but I am a hands-on guy. I'm going to put my hands on you. So you're going to kind of feel that movement and maybe hear that pop with me. I like that. I feel I get the best results with that kind of technique. I do have other things. Some people don't like the noise. Some people don't like that real like hands-on approach, but that is the way I do it. I can be nice too. I tell people I don't have to come off the top rope with my elbow, but I do like that approach. The people that see me do respond better with that approach. So, and I tell people I'm more potpourri. There's many, many different types of chiropractors out there. Everybody's like, well, I've been to a chiropractor. It didn't work for me.
Right.
There are like 200 techniques of chiropractic, 200 different ways to be adjusted. If you've been to one chiropractor, that was one.
Right. There's 199 more.
Exactly. So I am more potpourri. I have like 5 or 6 different techniques that I use depending on the type of person I'm working at. Some of them, they work best with my body, right? My biomechanics, the height I am, things like that. That makes a difference. Somebody 6'6", they don't adjust exactly like me, because chiropractic is physical in nature, because we're putting a force into you. There is a body mechanic involved with that adjustment also. So some people that are shorter than me, taller than me, wider than me, whatever, adjust a little differently too. So there is that component. So some of the techniques that I use are based on, because they work best for my body and I don't injure myself.
Right.
And then I also found that they're the best ones as result wise for my patients. So I do a lot of different things. But I am a hands-on guy. A lot of people use tools, nothing wrong with that, but I am a hands-on guy.
Yeah, I like it. Do you have any questions you want to ask?
Well, I just think you should say, all the services you provide over there. I know Ian's dad likes, what is it over there? A chair of some kind?
Yeah, I have
the neon light up massage service. You
exactly. It does have a neon light. But we offer some fluffy things, I call them. Yeah. They're just kind of a feel good thing. We have a cryo lounge over there, and that is supposed to simulate like a ice bath. Now, it isn't all encompassing around the body, but it gets pretty cold, doesn't it?
It's really cold.
It's crazy. It's supposed to help with recovery and
you
stuff
just
like
put
that.
it on the affected body part.
Well, there is a pad that you can put it on the affected body part, but actually the whole table that you sit on will ice your whole body on the backside. And it will actually do some heating at the same time if you want an ice and heat. We also have a water massage table. Again, I call it fluffy. It feels good. It kind of relaxes the body. We're not doing trigger point work with it or anything, but it is just something that's kind of nice. And we're in a high, everybody's stressed, right? There's always something going on. And sometimes you just need to unwind that body, that mind, and just kind of like relax. So we offer a couple things like that. I do dry needling also. I love it.
Which I love it too. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, it's a trigger point type therapy. Right. And we literally use acupuncture needles to stimulate those trigger points to get them to release and heal. It's actually mind-blowing how well it works. I've only been doing that about 8 years now, but the results are phenomenal. I also do cold laser, low-level laser. It's It's a device that has been used for almost 70 years in Europe, probably about 50 years or so here in the United States. And it's a healing device. It actually is a light. It's a red light at 635 nanometer wavelength. It's important. It's that wavelength of light stimulates the mitochondria in the cell to produce ATP. ATP is the energy that your body needs, or the cell needs, to do its function. So when you start to, get fatigued and stuff, some of it is that lack of ATP. Okay. You've just exhausted that store that you have built up. That laser actually stimulates the function and production of the ATP. So the muscle or the cell, whatever we're stimulating, is actually functioning at a much higher level. So I use that as an injury recovery tool for muscle spasms, for injury, for bruising, for damage. It actually helps heal. What else do I do? We have a massage therapist in there. I adjust, of course. And honestly, the laser, the dry needling, and the rehab are my main things. I don't do a lot of other things, because I find with those adjunctive tools like the rehab, the laser, and the dry needling, along with my adjustment, that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. If someone wants to get a hold of you, you want to go shout out your office number? Or?
I don't know my office number. At least here in Mount Vernon. That is really bad of me, but the girls say it all day long, and I don't remember it. My Loudonville number, though, I can give you that one, is 419-994-5222. And Danville is 740-599-7562. I know those two because they've 20 years I've been doing that.
Well, they go to your website. They can
go to the website. Yeah, and I know that at least.
What's the website?
www.ihcdr, IHC for Integrated Health Center, drdoctor.com. And that's our website, and all the numbers for every location's there. You can kind of see some of the services and stuff like that and get to know us a little bit better.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge today. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to come in and check him out here at one of his 3 locations, or send him an email, text, call, whatever.
Absolutely.
And we'll have to have you come back in. We'll do like a part 2 on a different topic or something. So
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things we could talk about.
I have a lot of stuff going on up here, so.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. Please subscribe so you get notifications. When we post new episodes, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching. And if you believe it, you can achieve it. We'll see you in the gym soon.